Oregon when we set this date, and he regrets that he couldn't join us, but I kind of told him, this is a women's event, we don't need you here. So we're going to proceed without him. This is one of my favorite events of the year, and anytime you can get really positive energy from progressive women all in the same room, I just don't think that's ever a bad thing. And especially right now, we've got work to do as women, and I don't want to discount the men in the room because I of course want to thank you for coming, but as women, we need to be empowered. We've got great women on the ticket in November, and we've got work to do. So I think this is a great event. I want to thank you for coming. I've got some thank yous, and I want to get this program started because we also have a beautiful night to enjoy once we're all done here. First of all, we've got some people that really helped us put this event together that of course I need to thank. Carrie Bowen, Sarah and Harry. As you guys know, Carrie is always here for us, and we are very grateful for her for constant help. Sarah and Indigo Womble. Sarah's over here, and her daughter Indigo, I think, is in the back. And they've helped us check in tonight and welcome people, so we're grateful for their help as well. And Roxanne, as always, we're very grateful. This is a beautiful home, as you all can see, and it's a wonderful place. It's a wonderful venue to welcome all of you here. So thank you so much for your generous support of the party. Tamara, I'm going to speak directly to you. Tamara Harrison is our executive director, and she makes us all look good. So Tamara spent the weekend making phone calls to all of you. You probably answered your phone to Tamara. And she's done a great job putting this event together, as she always does. So thank you, Tamara, for all of your help. I'm going to recognize the elected officials. And when you do this, inevitably you miss somebody. So if I do, raise your hand and yell out your name or yell at me for missing you. First of all, we have our candidate for our congressional candidate, Stacey Apple. Our Secretary of Agriculture candidate, Sherry Teha. Where is Sherry? Our candidate for governor is working and at another event, but his wife, Sonia Hatch, is here, and I'm not sure where Sonia is. Thank you for coming. State Representative Joe Olson is here somewhere. I turned the page early. State Representative Akino Abdul-Samad is right there. State Representative Marty Anderson is right over here. Our fantastic candidate in House District 39, Tom Leffler, is here. House District Julie Haggerty, our Polk County reporter. She was right over here, but I don't know where she went. Mary Maloney, our county treasurer is here. Sheriff Bill McCarthy is right over here. The president of Women for a Stronger America, Nancy Bobo, is right over here. Our former state senator Florence Burr is with us tonight. We have our Polk County Executive Committee. John Judge is our treasurer. Obviously, Tamara's here. I introduced her. John, where are you? There you are in the back. Mary Madison, our Affirmative Action Chair, is here. Julie Stewart, our Dallas County Chair, is here. but not least, unless I've missed somebody, is Heather Mattson, our Iowa Democratic Party Vice Chair. She's right over here. So we'll get on with our program, and I am going to allow Roxanne to introduce our special guest tonight. So thanks for coming, enjoy, and thanks.
Cara?
Yes.
The stuff that Indigo has.
I've got one more thing I've got to do, sorry. Sorry.
That's okay.
Thank you, Cara.
Sorry.
So Roxanne doesn't have to do this. We've got some items in the back. We've got placemats for $10, a group of placemats that Tamara's put together. We've got buttons for $5. We've got cookbooks for $25. And there are a few more books that Tamara put together for our event for Congressman Boswell. And they're beautiful books. They're $50. We're 30 printed, and I think once they're gone, they're going to be gone. So take a look back there at the table. Indigo is back there, and she'll take your money happily. So with that said, here you go.
Thank you so much. Thank you all for coming. My God, you are such an enthusiastic group. Yay! It's a great pleasure to welcome you all to my home that I share with my husband, Jason. I think you did miss someone, and that is our former Lieutenant Governor, one of my favorite human beings in the entire world, Joanne Vernon. Okay, it is my very great pleasure to introduce our guest of honor this evening. As you all know, Jack Hatch is our candidate for governor. And in making a selection of a person to run with him, there were a number of things he had to consider. Among them, will she work hard? Does she bring additional people to the ticket? Does she have something to say? Does she have something to offer? Can she raise money? All of those are things that he considered before he made his selection, and I'm very happy to tell you that Monica Vernon fits all of those parameters and many, many more. I am a great supporter of Jack's and a great supporter of Monica's. I know that you must all be too, but we cannot elect this very deserving ticket. We cannot elect these people who will make a huge change in the state of Iowa for the better if we don't reach outside this room. We have to talk to everybody we know when we go out to dinner. I know you're not supposed to talk to strangers, but go table to table and seek the votes of everybody that you see and everybody that you meet, because it really does matter. Terry Branstad, I ran against Terry Branstad for the first time in 1982. Some of you got pieces. Not very much. But a miss is as good as a mile. And so I am first runner-up to governor of the state of Iowa. And I am so sad that I permitted him to begin this dynasty that he has now just expanded. And obviously, as most of you are aware, I'm suing him. I'm suing him for a lot of things. There are so many to choose from. But this morning at 8:15, I had a hearing in a case called Godfrey versus the state of Iowa, and Governor Terry Branstad and a whole bunch of other people, all of whom participated in, first of all, trying to make him quit his job as a judicial officer for every single worker in the state of Iowa. He wouldn't do that. And so they said, okay, then we're going to lower your salary to the lowest possible place that it could be. $40,000 a year is what he lost, and what he lost 3 years ago. He hangs in, bless his heart, he hangs in, and he keeps representing the people of the state of Iowa, the workers who are injured on the job. What Mr. Branstad wanted to do, of course, was replace him with someone who would not represent human beings, but would represent businesses. And that is not what the job is supposed to be. So I will keep doing that, and Monica Vernon will run for Lieutenant Governor of the state of Iowa, and I assure you she will do a spectacular job, both as a candidate and as Lieutenant Governor of the state of Iowa. Please welcome Monica Vernon.
Don't fall down the stairs. Start out right away, and now we're over. Well, thank you so much, Roxanne. Thank you for having me. This is really awesome, and thank you to all of the women and supporters of women here in Polk County Democrats. It's really wonderful to be over here. I think I've learned so much from the women of Polk County. I just wanted to tell you that. In my congressional race and now, there are so many progressive women over here, and so many of you who have embodied so many causes and so many things that I have wanted to do all of my life, and so many of you went ahead and did them. And you know, I've been reading the papers a long time, so many of you mentored me without knowing that. And so thank you so much for all you did, and you're really definitely one of those examples, Roxanne. Well, so I joined the Hatch ticket. Thank you, Sonia, for inviting me, for accepting me in. June 17th, and it's been a whirlwind. I'm so honored to have joined Jack, and I want to tell you a little bit about how I know Jack, why I joined, a little bit of background about me, because so many people don't know me, and then I want to tell you how we're going to win this thing. So that you can go forth and get kicked out of restaurants and things like that. And I think we do. We have to go table to table. So here's the deal. I knew who Jack Hatch is. I knew who he was from reading the papers and being a champion of so many people who don't have champions. And so I had always known of his name and known of his works. And then as a city council member, of course, we've lobbied for different things. But it was really after the flood in Cedar Rapids when we were absolutely just decimated. And one of the big things we didn't have was affordable housing. We didn't have much affordable housing prior to the flood. After the flood, we knew we were in terrible shape. And nobody wanted to build again in Cedar Rapids. They just didn't want to take a risk on us. And I know, because I've been a small business woman, a lot of times different people don't want to take a risk on you. It's terrible when people don't want to take a risk on a whole city. Jack Hatch came in and built 2 gorgeous affordable housing buildings, kept all of his promises. It's in the old check area in my mother's check, and I wanted to make sure they looked really good and kind of matched with St. Wenceslas Church. I told Jack at one point, no, you have made a lot of promises. I want to make sure you keep them. And he's been reminding me of that he said, I knew you weren't a pushover. But we drove, a few of us drove Trust But Verify, we drove into Des Moines, and we saw the buildings. And I have to give credit to Sonia, because not only did Jack keep his promises on building what he said he'd build, but they're well built and they're well maintained. And as we came back from the flood, we just had to look a little bit to the east and see those buildings that someone believed in us. And we started as a council and as a community believing that others would come back and would build. And you have to come see Cedar Rapids today, but we're in much better shape. So when Jack asked me, I was thrilled to join the ticket. And I was excited that first day, and I get more excited every day we're out on the trail. So who am I? I'm a 57 Chevy. That's really kind of what I am. 56 years old. Born on the F.E. Warren Air Base, but my dad's from Keokuk, my mom's from the Czech population in Cedar Rapids. They met at the University of Iowa on a bet. That's a whole other story that my mother doesn't like to be told. But anyway, there is a crack on the sidewalk where they met, just south of the old Capitol. And I'm the oldest of 5. I really am my father's oldest son, because my brother that's a year younger than I am, he's just a gentle soul, and my dad's a driver. So when he wanted to do something, it was, hey, Monty. And so, of course, I could never turn him down because I was afraid he wouldn't ask me again. So, you know, we grew up in the 60s and watching the Vietnam War on TV, but also as the civil rights movement unfolded. And my father loves baseball. He's a Cards fan because, you know, Keokuk, almost in Missouri there. And he was on an integrated baseball team when he was growing up in the 40s. And they would go down into Missouri, and win or lose, they were all hungry. And they'd stop at a place, and here and there, the place wouldn't serve all of them. And so every time there'd be some civil rights, you know, a march or something, and to us it was TV. But my dad made it come alive at dinner time, and I think he might have told the story more than 50 times, so we all knew the punchline. But the punchline was, if you won't serve all of us, you're not serving any of us.
Yeah, right.
And I think that for me, when parents embody stuff, you know, things like that went further than one race. It went to all races. It went to all people. And you know, we're all equal. And my mother was a political science major, so she talked a lot about the Constitution. We didn't know really what she was talking about. But, you know, it was about how we're all created equal. So anyway, as Bill and I met and got married and had our 3 daughters, you know, you weave in the stuff from your own families. We have 3 daughters. And I gave birth by C-section, and so the first was an emergency, and we got it all figured out by the 3rd one. And I am on the table, and of course I can't move, but I can talk. And the 3 guys, with my husband, the specialist, are down at the end of the table delivering what ends up being our 3rd daughter. And so one of the physicians looks at my husband, the OBGYN, and Hansen says, "It's another girl." And it's just a darn good thing I couldn't move. So I have to credit my husband, Bill Vernon, for saying something that then became part of our family, which is, "And she is human potential." And he took that little baby. And then I said, because of course we were always having these things about what the kids' names would be. So we had Natalie, Frances, and I've always loved Eleanor Roosevelt, but Bill wasn't sure he liked that name. And so we do come from a family, sometimes I call it a mixed marriage. We've had Republicans and Democrats on both sides of the family. So I said, and her name will be Eleanor. And no one was going to argue with me at that point. And then he looked at me, and he knew. And I said, and his nanny from up in Esterville, Iowa, Nan Kennedy, her middle name was Ford. And so I decreed that Eleanor's middle name could be Ford. And that would be kind of a mixture of things. And so anyway, we have 3 wonderful daughters. And so that human potential thing became part of our family lore. And so we started looking at every situation of human potential. No matter what your ability or disability, everybody matters. And that became part of our family deal. Another family story, our oldest daughter was the only child in her 5th grade class that wasn't invited to an overnight. Have you all been there? And so what we decided is that we're going to include rather than exclude for the rest of our lives. And we decided that whenever if you had a house like Roxanne, I mean, you know, you can't say, well, we don't have room. I remember the mother said, I usually didn't go, you know, stomp down to the principal's office or anything, but I did that day, and I said, what's going on? And, oh, well, they didn't have quite enough room. Not room for one more girl. And so, anyway, we decided that what we would do is we would wait a couple months, and then what I did is I invited every girl in both classes to an overnight at our house. And then we prayed that people were going to be out of town. So 19 girls showed up. They stayed up the entire night. And at that time, the girls were going to St. Matthew's, so we paraded them down to church. I'd always wanted to take up a whole pew. When you grow up Catholic, that's something that for a while you think might be cool, until you have 3 C-sections. So anyway, we did that just to kind of show everybody that we believe in including rather than excluding. And if you think about about that in our communities, around our state. Whenever somebody wants to be involved, we just put another chair at the table. And so we started doing that for our dinner parties, for everything. Just include rather than exclude. And I think that's another kind of thing that really became our mantra. So, one more story about kids, because it really tells you who we are. So that little Eleanor, there's always something about that baby daughter. But anyway, she was going off to her first overnight. You know, you brainwash them your way. And she was going not too far into someone we sort of know. And so she came back the next day, and I was in my t-shirt scrambling eggs. Because we're sort of frugal, and Bill was in a lot of runs at one point in his life, so I was wearing this old t-shirt and scrambling eggs. And she came running in the back door, and she was skipping and hopping around our kitchen. And she said, "Oh, their mom was so fancy. Their mom was just so fancy." And I said, "Well, what was so fancy about her, you know?" What's fancy about her? And she said, "Mom, her nightgown and her bathrobe match." So then, at my own peril, I asked, "Well, what kind of mom am I?" And she put her hands on her hips and she looked up at me and she said, "Mom, you're a hard-working woman." My stories, I don't forget all of my stuff. But, you know, I think that's what I bring to this, is I am a hardworking woman. I don't know any other way. I'm a working mom who raised 3 daughters. I did always have Bill in the home, but, you know, he's a lawyer who many times was out of state. And so I know that I'm a hardworking woman, but I know I'm not the only hardworking woman in this house right now. And I know I'm not the only hardworking family member in this house, and I know that all across Iowa, people work hard. They work hard for what the money they make. They work hard on their communities. And I think right now we need a fresh start with a governor's office that understands that. You know, there's a lot of issues we're going to be talking about. We really need a fresh start in this race, in this state. I think that we need equal pay for equal work for women. We need that minimum wage. In my company, and I built a market research firm, we upped our minimum wage to $10 an hour 10 years ago. Wow. For our I sold it a year ago. So that just shows you we made it work. But I knew that even my interns could not survive like they should. And so I raised it on my own. Not everyone's going to do that. We need to make sure it happens. Let me tell you one more story about one of my daughters. When you have 3 daughters, there's all these stories. When I first came out of journalism school, I worked at a newspaper. And when I joined that paper, quite often the women go on to lifestyle. I think I was doing recipes. I was single at the time, and they got mad at me because all the recipes were from young men. So I did interview a lot of women as well at some point. But the young men went into the police beat. And what I found out was that with the same journalism degree, and each of us had 1 year experience, I was making a fraction of what my cohort was making. Wow. And I went to HR. This is another lawsuit for you. I went to HR, and it's illegal. It's illegal. So I went to HR, and it was illegal for me to know that. And it still is in the United States. And Stacy, I hope you can change that. So when the president came out with 77% is what women make. I was campaigning for Congress at that time, and I was talking to a really good guy who's a business person, and he said, "Mark, I just don't believe that. I pay my women really, really well." So I said, "Well, I believe these statistics. I've looked into them." And so that night I went home after that campaign event, and I got a call from one of my daughters. And she had been given a new position within her company, as had one of her male cohorts. and they were all out for beer afterwards. And he said, I don't know how I'm going to survive on only X amount of money. And so then she learned what he was being paid, same degree, same experience. And she was, of course, finished her beer and then went out in the street and started crying. And of course, what do? You call your mother, no matter how old you are. And I was sitting at home and I did the math immediately, 76%. So I'm here to tell you that as a mom, as a working woman, I think we've got to work harder on those kinds of things. So I have two more things to talk about. One is a little bit about when you running. So I am this is my 7th year as a Cedar Rapids City Councilwoman. I started out as a small business person raising kids, got involved with the homeless in my community and affordable housing and economic development, ran for city council and won just in time for the big flood. And rolled my sleeves up. We did all that work to bring Cedar Rapids back. It's not perfect, but we're really getting there. So I wanted to tell this quickly. You know, we have to keep working as women and as supporters of women, because I don't know, Stacy, if you've been asked this, but as I ran for Congress in the 1st District, came in 2nd out of 5th, so I'm also a runner-up, but I was asked a number of times, isn't that kind of a leap for you? And you know, I just can't believe that I was asked that by members of our media. When you know, first of all, raising 3 kids successfully, that's worth a lot. Building a small business for 26 years and then being able to sell it for something, that's worth a lot. Being mayor pro tem of the Cedar Rapids City Council for 5 years, chosen by my peers, coming back from the flood. I mean, I think I've got what it takes. But I was asked that a number of times, and I think we've got a ways to go. So I think maybe we need to tell our stories. I have more of them. You don't want to hear them right now. But I do think that it's important that strength in numbers, that we talk about these things. Lastly, let me just tell you, I am so thrilled to be on this ticket. We are finding excited people everywhere we go in Iowa. And let me tell you why we're going to win. We have researchers in today, and they're telling us that our governor still hasn't hit 50% of the people in the state who believe he deserves another term. He still hasn't hit 50%. I think it's 47%. And as Jack and I have gone around the state, sometimes we're together, sometimes we're out on our own doing things, but we keep hearing it in one way or another. You know what? I just don't think he deserves another term. I just don't think we should send him back for another. They're saying it's time for him to move on. And so I think that, not in a mean way, some people actually say things like, you know, I kind of like the guy. Not everyone says that, but some people say, I kind of like the guy, but I don't think he deserves another term. So we really have that going for us. The other thing we have going for us is that we have people all over the state who really believe in the leadership of Jack Hatch. They've seen him in action, and they are craving leadership. This state has been coasting, and more people are seeing that. So if you look at the statistics, and for those of you who are going to go door to door, and those of you who are going to go table to table in restaurants, look at where we are in education. We have not invested in education. We have not invested in infrastructure the way we should. We are not building communities, our state from the community up. We're picking winners and losers from the top down. And Iowans don't want that. They want a fresh start, and we know we can do it. So, one more thing that all of you have seen. You've seen the ads this summer. So at the beginning of the summer, and I hadn't joined the campaign yet, but there was a study that showed that Jack was just 8 points behind. And a year ago, he was 28 points behind. So at the beginning of the summer, he was 8 points behind. The other side has dumped over $2 million into the campaign. Over $2 million. Guess what? The needle hasn't moved at all. We're 8 points behind. So we have, in some ways, that's like a surge ahead, because we have withstood all of those attacks. So what we have to do to win is twofold. Number one, we've got to get more awareness. People know they don't want him. They want to know who the choice is. So we're out every single day building awareness. And the second thing we've got to do is raise the money to make sure we can make that awareness statewide. So we are working hard on that. Jack isn't here because he's at a fundraiser. We have had a couple of awesome weeks, and we will be hard at it. I peeked in the window at Stacy Apple the other day at the coordinated office. I know she's hard at it, and we will be as well. So thank you so much for having me. I'm looking forward to meeting all of you I haven't met. Really appreciate all the warmth and friendliness. We are feeling the momentum around the state. We've got to get Democrats to believe in us and spread the word and create the buzz. We also know that independent women will come our way. We also know that enlightened Republican women will come our way, and many others.
Was that terrific or what? Phenomenal Lieutenant Governor. You're not going to just stand by me all the time. Take the opportunity to get to know Monica, and then dig deep and give more money if you can. And if you can't, sign up to work. This is an effort that we all need to make. I want to take just a moment to introduce someone who is very, very special to me, who just came in. When I was 19 years old, I decided I wanted to be the president of the Polk County Young Democrats. It was a viable group. And I went to see the head of the old Polk County Democrats, and he said to me, you might want to think twice about that, because it gets in your blood and you never get out. That very special man just came into my house, and I'm glad to welcome Arthur Hedberg, the former chair of the Polk County Old Democrats. Yay, And one other person has also come in. You probably thought I was going to introduce you, but somebody has the courage, the fortitude, and the absolute guts to take on that awful, horrible Steve King. From the top to the bottom. Bruce Braley is not here tonight. We thought maybe he'd be able to stop by, but he's been unable to be with us so far. We have members of his campaign staff, Jake and Janie. Please say hello to them. And Bruce is a personal friend of mine, one of the finest lawyers I've ever known, but also one of the finest human beings. So keep him in your thoughts as well. And finally, I want to say, right this very moment, I have 16 kittens. So please think of me for all your kitten needs. Thank you all for coming. Please help yourself to more food and more drink, and talk to one another, and go door to door and take the table. Thank you all.